Let's talk Brian Kelly for a second. LSU, I'm taking on the Gators in the Swamp this weekend. And it is terribly fascinating to me, Aaron, because as we'll get to during report card season, I see two teams that in a lot of ways are similar. Year one of new coaches, rebuilding pretty significantly. However, I do see one season that feels way better than the other does. And that is Florida over LSU. And it's odd because I feel like Billy Napier enters this game basically with house money. It's a bit of lagniappe. It's not the biggest deal, win or lose here. No, a lot to be gained. I should preface that. Like a lot to be gained for Florida if they win the game. I guess I'm talking about nightmare scenarios. If Florida were to lose, sure, those fans are going to be upset because they're sick of losing to LSU, but I don't think it's going to be any great referendum on Billy Napier. I don't know if I can say the same about Brian Kelly right now. I guess I would say this. If you're asking me how much pressure is on Brian Kelly versus in this Florida game, I think there's as much pressure as you can apply, knowing that a job and everything else is completely safe, right? Like, I'm not saying pressure like anybody's going to get fired or anything like that, but I'm talking about pressure in if you want the fan base to believe in you and you don't want to have to deal with just a swirling maelstrom of negativity and bad headlines and people jumping the ship and having to earn them back. This weekend goes a very long way. So, no, I think all the pressure is on LSU this weekend.
I think the pressure's on both teams. I wouldn't put it one more than the other right now. I think the pressure is not in the sense of like, okay, it's a must win because it is still year one. And I think both these teams have performed well this year. I mean, both are 4-2. Both have had some really good wins. I mean, go back a couple weeks ago, LSU beat Mississippi State. That's a hell of a win. I think Mississippi State's the third or fourth best team in the SEC. To get that win was a signature win year one for Brian Kelly. Obviously, Florida is the game versus Tennessee was a loss, but you saw some progression. A nice win last week versus Missouri. I think both programs are heading in the right direction where a loss doesn't necessarily set that back. I think the pressure is more of like just keeping up with the Joneses, in the sense of recruiting, especially recruiting. Like there is, you're in the league right now. And we talked about it yesterday of like, okay, why would a coach want to come take the job at Auburn over Nebraska? Because you have to face all these coaches and these personalities. And it's recruiting, man. And that's the name of the game nowadays. And it's always been. It's not about as much of the X's and O's. It's more about the Jimmies and the Joes, like we have to talk about. And if you're LSU or Florida and you're having to recruit against the Alabamas and the Georgias and the Texases and the Oklahomas and the Texas A&Ms and the teams in Mississippi, you got to have good records. Let's just be honest. Like 4- and 5-star kids don't want to go to losing football teams. They want to go to games. And they want to go to teams that have prominence in their conference in the SEC and then obviously in the national landscape as well. So when you're in primetime television and when you have an opportunity to beat a big time team, a team with a big brand like Florida or LSU, and kind of send a message to those recruits and to the I would say the entire conference, you got to take advantage of that early on in your career, both for these coaches. So no, I don't think to me, and maybe you have a better opinion of this because you're in Baton Rouge and I'm an outsider to both these schools. I don't think like either fan base is going to, be burning the town down if you lose a closely contested game this weekend.
So I can give you the local feeling on the match, right? I don't think it's the logical one. And like a detective that's probably too close to the case and shouldn't be working it, I'm obviously going to approach this from a very egocentric sort of LSU standpoint. But you got to understand, Aaron, when this LSU job was up for grabs, Billy Napier was the name that was constantly discussed, because Brian Kelly never really entered the mix because it was thought to be unrealistic, right? And the lines in the sand that were drawn over Billy Napier, right, with some old school, more prideful LSU fans being like, he came from UL, you can't get UL's head coach or LSU, blah, 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 right? He's unproven, all these sorts of things. Versus the other ones who are like, no, he's had incredible success at UL. He's turned down multiple jobs. He's been waiting for this job. Like, he is the fast riser that you want to catch on the way up. Now, you went and hired Brian Kelly, So you made an unimpeachable hire from a resume standpoint, but you still did maybe potentially miss on the next big thing. And like those are the narratives that are in play come Saturday in the Swamp. Is it is a referendum on the choice that Scott Woodward made to hire Brian Kelly and never even interview Billy Napier. Because if you look, like we said, both schools are rebuilding. Maybe Florida slightly more significantly than LSU, but I don't know. I mean, LSU was down to 39 players in that Texas Bowl and has had to build up from that. The problem with LSU right now is even in the context of that rebuild, it feels like they are not getting the most out of their players. I mean, the vast majority of the talent lies in the wide receiver room, and that's a wide receiver room that has not really done anything yet this season. And it feels like if Billy Napier were to win this game with equivalent to maybe less than talent, whatever, like even equal talent, if Billy Napier wins this game, it feels like he is getting more and maximizing what he has while you are maybe underachieving a bit on what you have. It would also be the first time, and you've beat Florida 3 times in a row now, so people have gotten very used to that. It would be really bad. It would set up for multiple weeks of very bad headlines with Ole Miss looming very large the following week.
Ole Miss, then Alabama too. I think that's a little bit of a concern too. Like if you can't, you just got embarrassed. I mean, the problem is you just got embarrassed by Tennessee. So there's a lot of fans right now that
in front of a lot of recruits, Aaron. To your point, you got embarrassed in front of Tennessee and a lot of recruits, dude.
Yeah, you're at home, big time opportunity to knock down a top 10 team, and it wasn't close. I mean, it was a shellacking, and it's honestly been 2 weeks now. I mean, you go back even 2 weeks ago versus Auburn. In that game, you come back. It was great to see the fight. Great to see Auburn or LSU win that game in the second half. But that game should never have been close. Auburn is a bad football team. So now all of a sudden you had a bad week versus Auburn. You found a way to win. Congratulations. You get your ass destroyed versus Tennessee at home, 40-13. You go on the road to Florida. You lose that game. So that's now 3 bad games in a row. Most likely going to lose to Ole Miss. Most likely going to lose to Alabama. So you have a 4-game losing streak and really 5 games that you haven't played that well. And then you have to turn around and play at Arkansas, which is not a walk in there and just win football game. And we've talked about Arkansas. Their weakness is their secondary. And LSU right now still is finding ways to get those receivers involved in the game. So I just think there's I think you made a good point, T-Bob. Like there's a frustration of we looked at this season and we saw the talent on both sides of the football. We saw the talent at the receiving spot. And we said, we got a better coach. We're going to find a way to get those guys the ball. We're going to find a way to play an exciting brand of football. And we're not seeing that on offense. We're not seeing these receivers get involved. Kayshawn has been extremely disappointing. Malik Neighbors has been good when he gets going. But, like, how do you get that position right? And you look at this game right now, and it's a tale of – I talked about it yesterday. It's a tale of haves and have-nots. Like, do you have a quarterback or do you not have a quarterback? And you can easily say when you look at that Anthony Richardson – where he's had his moments this year of not playing great, he's getting better. And he's making plays in the pass game. He's making plays in the run game. What he did versus Tennessee was great. I thought he looked pretty darn good last week at Missouri. So you see a progression on that football team. Yeah. You look at LSU, and it seems to be going in the opposite direction. They seem to be regressing on offense, especially in the passing game, and not getting those receivers involved. So I just think that there's a sense of, why aren't we getting better? We have better coaching. We have talent, but we're kind of in quicksand right now.
No, I mean, that's exactly what it is. I have never felt more down on the LSU offensive philosophy than I do right now. It's because of 2 bad games in a row. Like Tennessee was supposed to be bad. You completely failed they're supposed to be bad defensively, right? You completely failed to take advantage of that same bad defense. Josh Rumsey in the chat says, so he said, what did he say about, it's about LSU's defense. Oh man, okay. Says, Josh Rumsey says, because Florida's defense is better than LSU. I don't know that I believe that. Like, I want to say Florida's ranked 12th in both points per game given up and total defense. So this is not a Florida defense that's been particularly good. But again, for the second week in a row, like, if it's bad LSU offense versus a bad defense, I'm siding with the defense right now, especially when the health of Will Campbell's in a pretty unknown and kind of worrying spot. And I mean worrying like for him personally, right? Beyond just football. He had to spend all weekend in the hospital. He's still getting tests and everything. And they're bullish on his return. But I don't know if he's going to play. Garrett Dellinger will not play this week, and he's been your best O-lineman. So yeah, like I think sure Florida's defense isn't that good, but LSU's offense can't take advantage. And then you flip, and Florida has an elite running game. And if you want to oversell to stop it, Anthony Richardson is getting better and better at making you pay through the air. Combine that with this game being in the swamp, and not only I think locally is all the pressure and expectation on Kelly to win, but I don't think that LSU does win.
I think the biggest pressure is just it's not the players or the direction of the program. I just think it's going to be more, which is we as college football fans, we love to talk, we love to compare. That's just part of the game. It's part of the world we live in, especially in this conference. I think the biggest comparison is more of we had this coach in our backyard. We didn't interview him, like you said. He goes to Florida, and then year one, it looks like Florida's a better football team when they really shouldn't be.
Yeah. That's exactly it. You summed it up perfectly. That is exactly what's in the problem.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you know it better than I. And answer this real quick before we move on.
Yeah.
Why didn't they interview him? Was it because that LSU viewed themselves as big brother? We're not going to go take something from little brother. We're too good for that. Like, why was Napier not even considered, knowing that you've seen him? The fan base knows who he is. He knows that state. He can recruit in that state. Like, why was he never given a fair shake?
I think that, well, look, the only person who can really know this is Scott Woodward, right? The AD.
Yeah.
But I think that if you look at Woodward's track record of hiring, he wants to err on the side of, I'm going to hire the guy with the unimpeachable resume. And my interpretation of that has always been, well, not only is it obviously like, common sense. Okay, let me try to go get the guy who has the best resume. But it basically makes you unimpeachable from a blame standpoint. Like right now at Texas A&M, it has gone awry with Jimbo Fisher. At least currently, it feels very awry, right? That's a Scott Woodward deal. But if you look at the context with which Jimbo Fisher was hired, that was viewed like a home run. And he can sit there and say, look, I don't know, man. He was producing first-round quarterbacks. He had a national championship. Like, it's not my fault that it wasn't like I took a chance on some unknown quantity and paid him millions and it didn't work out. So I think it's a bit of a risk aversion thing in that he has always had his sights set on a better resume than what Billy Napier had at the time. So we will.
I still think it's a better hire. I mean, listen, we're looking at this right now from a 6-game sample size and going to be a 7-game sample size. Like, that is small stuff right there. When you look at where these programs have the chance to be in the next year or two and beyond, because I don't think these coaches are going anywhere anytime soon. I still believe in my heart of hearts, knowing the recruiting talent in LSU and in Louisiana, and knowing that LSU kind of has a hold on Louisiana compared to Florida. We've talked about on the show before, like, everyone goes to Florida. You got Miami, you got Florida State, you got the Georgias, Alabamas. Like, everyone has infiltrated that state, and no one has really done a good job of finding a way to get into Louisiana. It really is LSU State. So I feel long-term wise that Brian Kelly is that guy that in next year and the year after that, once he finds a quarterback that can fit his system a little bit better, that LSU is going to skyrocket up the rankings. So I guess my message from being on the outside looking in to you crazy LSU fans is just relax. Like, the world is not going to end even if you lose to this weekend to Billy Napier. It's not, hey, we should have hired Billy Napier. He should have been our coach. He was right in our backyard. What the hell were we thinking? No, you got the better coach. You got the better guy. Just be patient. He's going to get this thing right. Don't worry about it.
Shut the hell up, Aaron Murray. Don't you tell me to relax, dude. You gotta beat Billy Napier. Bottom freaking line, okay, dude? No, he kind of really does. Look, I too am a Cult of Kelly believer long term. Absolutely.
Yes.
But I also don't want life to be miserable in the short term. Like I said, nobody's getting fired. but I do not want to have to do 2 weeks of shows, 3 weeks, a month of shows about how horrible it all is at LSU right now. Okay, so we'll see. I gotta watch a bit more Florida film today on Tuesday. I do not think LSU wins this game, but I gotta watch a bit more Florida film, and we will see.
Yep.